Don't worry about
it. And we are live. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. It's Friday, August 5th, 2022. And today we're talking about the iPhone 14 defying inflation and staying the same price. I don't know if I believe it yet, but we'll see. We're also going to be diving into some iPad rumors, both on the OS side and hardware side. That'll be pretty fun. And I'm also going to talk about why I want to buy an Apple Watch for my mother. And then Karen's going to tell me why maybe you shouldn't buy an Apple Watch for your mother. So stay tuned for that, because this is the iMore Show. I am your host, Luke Philipovich. I'm also sitting today for the first time. If you're wondering why my background's a little more messy than it usually is. Yeah, I've decided I'd sit today. If anybody knows who Anthony Fantano is, you'll respect the decision. I'm your host, Luke Philipovich, writer for iMore, joined as always by news editor for iMore, Stephen Warwick. How you doing, Stephen?
Hello, I'm fine. Just Googling Anthony Fantano to see what the crack is there. Not getting much from first glance, but I'll get back to you.
And joined by, as always, by iMore contributor Karen Freeman. How you doing, Karen?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Not too bad. Before we get into the main part of the show, I do want to say we have a quick announcement. The next 2 weeks, we will be having an iMore show, but our live show is going to actually be on Thursday for the next 2 weeks. So that's Thursday, August 11th at 11 a.m. Eastern time, as we normally do, and Thursday, August 18th at 11 a.m. Eastern time. We just have some holidays coming up, but we wanted to make sure that the show kept going, so we're just moving it ahead for the live viewers. If you're just listening to this in your podcatcher of choice, don't worry about it. It'll be there just like it always is, usually on Sundays. So don't worry about it. There won't be much of a difference. But just so you know, the next 2 weeks after this week, we will be moving the live show up to Thursday. Let's talk about iPhone 14, because we know it's coming.
That's twice you've tried to say that now, Luke, and is everything okay?
Yeah, I'm just I'm too excited. I'm like,
we
really,
got
really
i4 the first time, which I like.
Yeah. So the iPhone 14, there's a new pricing leak, and we've talked about this a little bit on the show before, and we've wondered, what is the price of the base starting model of the iPhone 14 going to be? And according to this new leak, we're hearing $799, which is exactly what the iPhone 13 was. Stephen, take us through what we know about this so far.
Yeah, so this comes from it's quite an obscure source. This is a blog. I think it's a Korean blog called Naver. Apologies if I've got that wrong. And it's from a user who has previously accurately leaked stuff, but very, very obscure, very small body of work. The interesting thing about this is they say that the information comes from like a major US financial institution. So it's not their information. They're kind of conveying it from somewhere else, which makes me think it's like, when we get like analyst notes from like a Morgan Stanley or something like that. And a lot of those analysts tend to be quite well plugged into some of the supply chain side and things. So it's from a reasonably reliable source, but it does kind of make some sense. And yeah, we're hearing that Apple has made, this is like an executive decision, whether that means it was a Tim Cook made decision or amongst kind of the Apple's head honchos, that Apple has decided to keep the base model price of the iPhone 14 expected next month exactly the same as the current model. Now, of course, we're expecting Apple to ditch the mini iPhone in favor of a new Max regular 6.7-inch device without Pro features. So $799 is still more expensive than the cheapest iPhone you can currently buy, which is the iPhone 13 mini. But because Apple's dropping that from the lineup, the cheapest next model will be the same price as the equivalent model is currently, $799 for the regular iPhone 14, currently the 13, the 6.1-inch version, which is, I think, so the reasons cited for this was like a slowdown in the kind of global smartphone market and declining demand, as well as you have to imagine the ongoing cost of living crisis and things like that. I know certainly I'm personally thinking about this next iPhone, and is this, if the price does increase, there will be like a financial decision to make about whether I get this next iPhone. And I think we're actually going to maybe talk later about like what the one feature you would have to have in order to make the jump next year. But good news if you're wanting to get an iPhone this year and you're worried about the pricing and, of course, the general kind of cost of living stuff that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, we had brought this up on the show before, and I had said I was worried that they were, going to increase the price as they have before when new models have come out. Especially since we keep hearing that the iPhone 14 isn't supposed to be getting any sort of really anything big. It's all pretty much going to the iPhone 14 Pro, and Pro Max are going to be getting most of the upgrades, including a new processor and things like that, if those rumors hold true. So it would be pretty hard, I think, for Apple to justify bumping up the price of the starting iPhone 14, since it is just an iPhone 13, really. There aren't really any significant changes that we know of yet. Perhaps a slightly bigger battery, but we don't really know. It seems like it might even just be an iPhone 13, which makes me wonder why even call it an iPhone 14 and why not just have I guess you have to. I guess they've gotten into this
marketing
where you have to have.
Apple's going to add something. Right?
Yeah,
maybe not the hot new chip, but there'll be some kind of changes. The question is, will they keep the 13 in the lineup and lower the price?
You have to think, they would do something. Sorry, Luke, but one thing that has occurred to me is if they do that, there might be a 13 mini that you can still buy somewhere. So just because this New Year's lineup isn't going to have a mini, we think, we assume, doesn't mean you won't still be able to buy one, even from Apple, if not certainly from elsewhere. But yeah, I think we'll get the regular downward shuffle of models like we do with kind of with the iPhone, certainly. And I think this year, for the reasons we've discussed, the cost of living, such like that, it's probably more pertinent this year than it has been in previous years that there are a few different options of models for people to choose from.
Right. Well, Apple always keeps one or two older models. It's not always the immediate preceding one. Sometimes the preceding model is eliminated immediately. So hopefully I mean, I would like to see them keep the 13 and get rid of the what are they? Are they still selling the 11, right?
Yeah, the 11 and the 12.
Yeah, the 11.
Maybe drop the 11. I think
it's
time to drop the 11 and keep the 13 in lineup and just shift everything downward price wise.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I guess maybe I've lost faith in capitalist society, but I kind of expected Apple to bump the price even if there wasn't really going to be necessarily a reason to. So I'm glad to hear that at least the rumors seem like they're not going to do that. They've made the decision to keep it the same, which I think is really the only decision you should be making, especially if the phone's mostly going to be the same phone from last year.
Yeah, I agree that that's what Apple should do. But, again, this is still in the rumor phase, so we don't know.
Luke,
I think you're really right as well. The fact that it doesn't sound from everything we've heard, the leaks and the rumors about the next iPhone, doesn't sound like they're doing much of anything at all to the lower end models. So it would be very difficult to justify increasing the price based on inflation alone. I think that would make it a very tough sell for Apple. So maybe they're going to just kind of take the hit on this one. I think the interesting thing as well is, though, we are hearing lots of stuff about the iPhone 14 Pro in that it's going to be quite a big jump and change in maybe a few different ways. So I wouldn't be surprised if those models are more expensive, even just a little bit, maybe $50 or $100. Of course, that adds up even if you're on like the upgrade program or a contract. But it's possible that the range of iPhone pricing this year is perhaps broader than it has been in other years, even if the entry level is still the same.
Yeah, and plus we're looks like we're going to be getting a 14 Max that's not Pro. And that's certainly going to be more expensive than the iPhone 14, probably by $100. So, the whole range is moving up, even if the standard numbered model isn't going up in price.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the actual prices are when they come out. We know that every time they launch they launch a new product, usually at the very end of that part of the keynote, they always kind of put up their entire lineup on the screen and they give all the starting prices, and it kind of gives everyone a good view of kind of where where their entire lineup sits. So I'll be interested to see, the models that have moved down, the models that have moved on aren't there anymore, the models that are coming in. I'll be interesting to see like what those price jumps are, because for a lot of years, it's like usually like $100. It just kind of goes up and down the line. It's usually about $100 roughly for the starting models. And then obviously as you add storage and other things, there's extra costs there. But it might not be that way this year. There might be some bigger gaps, which will very much influence people's buying decisions. I mean, if an iPhone 14 Pro was only $100, or an iPhone 13 Pro was only $100 more than the regular iPhone 13, right? I think was it 100 or maybe 200? It might have been 200.
It's more than 100.
Does it start at $999? Does that sound right? Now I can't remember. Now we got to look this up. My point being is if that is, if that gets larger, if that the discrepancy between models, or between the Pro and the Pro Max, if that discrepancy gets larger, if that gap gets larger, that's going to influence a lot of people's decision about, well, do I jump to Pro this time? Normally I jump to the Pro Max because it's like an extra $100, and $100 is a lot, but
150, I think. So yeah, $799 for the regular 13, not discount the mini, and then the equivalent sized Pro is $949. So
right, yeah,
99. I'm getting
at least in the UK.
In the US, it's $999.
Okay,
so the thing, exchange rate also a big player this year.
Yeah, sure. If that $200 got bigger, it will probably influence a few more people to be like, do I really need the Pro phone this time around?
I'm guessing it's going to be $100 steps. It's going to be the 14 will be $799. The 14 Max will be $899. 13 Pro $999. Although who knows if it could be they might put some more space in there by making it 1050 or 1100.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, especially with the market being so in flux right now. It'll be interesting to see how Apple responds. But speaking of the iPhone 14, another thing that we heard this week is it might charge faster than our current iPhone, which I think is interesting, because
I'm less concerned about the time that it takes than the heating up, because a lot of the third-party chargers that I use get very hot. Charging wirelessly.
Yeah. In fact, I'm sure people who listen to our podcast are very familiar with MKBHD. He did a great video, I think it was a couple months ago now, about fast charging and battery health. And overall, he found that, like, for the most part, most of the cell phone manufacturers, they kind of abide by a sort of self-regulated rule of after 2 years, your battery should still have 80% of its full capacity. And that's kind of what they've been going with. And even with some of these really fast chargers we've seen from other companies, like ones that even go up to, way past the 20 watts that Apple has in their current kind of fastest iPhone charger, are still either meeting that or exceeding that, like even being better than that. So it's interesting, but I agree with you, Karen. I worry sometimes when I slap my phone on a different charger, or even when I'm just charging my phone sometimes, and if it happens to be like sitting in the sun or something, like heat is really bad for your battery. It's way worse than cold. Up here in Canada, we deal with the cold with our batteries all the time, but your battery will most likely just recover fine from cold after sitting around in room temperature for a while, but heat can really destroy the usefulness of a battery. So it's interesting to hear that maybe they'll charge faster, but how much faster are we thinking? Do we even know, Stephen?
No, so it's like we know the wattage. So the leak, according to this, it will have a 30-watt kind of charging level, presumably through a 30-watt power adapter that you probably have to buy separately. But it's like a quick burst of 30 watt, and then it will drop down to like 25, 27. So you get like an immediate kind of kick, but then a more sustainable level of charging after that to stop the overheating that you guys are talking about. I know exactly what you mean. I have a 20-watt third-party charger. It's not like a cheap, it's from Anker. It's a really cool USB-C one, just a regular size kind of plug, but I put my phone in that, and after 10, 15 minutes, you're like, oh, this is warm. I should stop doing this. I only use it like for emergency kind of power.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how a 30-watt version does that. But of course, that's significantly more than MagSafe, which would be 15 watts or like 7.5 if you just kind of sat on like a regular wireless charger. So I mean, I think everyone is always looking for more juice more quickly when it comes to most devices. Look at the success of like Beats and their like fast fuel stuff. I've always really valued that and things, so I think it'd be welcome. But yeah, the heat is always an issue when it comes to charging, and considering, like I said, I know I personally I have an iPhone that gets hot as it is on like 20 watts. It'd be interesting to see how 30 watts, even with that kind of that tapering off in power goes.
Yeah, and don't forget the most important part of that rumor, that the iPhone 14 Pro is reportedly going to come in purple, which makes me so excited. You have no idea.
Yeah,
this is
purple will looks like it's going to be the kind of additional launch color. You know how we've always kind of seen the white or the silver, the gold, the space gray, and then we've seen an additional launch color. It's been blue, it's been green, and then now it looks like it'll be purple, which they've done purple iPhones before. But it's been usually as a the last time we saw it, it was a mid-season or a halfway through the life cycle.
And we've never seen it on the Pro.
Yeah, and we haven't seen on the Pro. You're right. It was on.
We've never seen purple anything on Pro anything, and I want it.
Yeah,
that is fair. I'm working on a behind the scenes. I'm ranking like iPhone designs for some stuff for iMore, and I was looking today, and like I was getting quite reminiscent of like some of the old colors. I would really like the iPhone 12's blue back, Sierra blue, because that it's just the. Sorry, no, Pacific Blue. This year's Sierra Blue, which I do not like as much, but Pacific Blue or the Midnight Green from the previous year. But yeah, purple coming to both handsets, actually. I wonder if like the green this year, the Alpine, and the other green that came in the spring for the iPhone 13, they'll be like both purple, but slightly different, even in terms of just the finish as well as the shade. But yeah, it looks like we're getting kind of purple on both, which is nice. The full list was, so for the 14 Pro, your regular graphite, silver, gold, green, which we currently have, was the spring launch this year, like you said, and then purple. And then for the regular iPhone, we've got green, purple, blue, black, white, and product. Well, it just says red, but you would assume product red.
Product red, yeah.
Yeah.
Bless you, Karen.
Thank you. I'm not sick. I always feel like I need to say that. I'm not sick. Just...
Yeah. Before we wrap up our conversation here about the iPhone 14, I'll just bring in Phone Pup in the comments here has told us that the Pro phones actually haven't gone up in price since 2018, which I never really thought about. But yeah, I guess they've always been that same sort of $999 and then
keeping that entry point just under $1,000.
Yeah,
there's something about crossing that $1,000 mark.
Yeah, it's a psychology
I really
thing.
hope they keep it there because that's the funnel I always get. So
yeah,
to keep it under $1,000.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what they do. He adds in the comments as well that it's been nice to know those prices were the same, but maybe Apple thinks it's been the same for long enough, especially considering the market. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. I agree with you, Phone Pup. It would be nice to keep those familiar numbers, but we'll have to see what happens come September. It won't be coming in September if the rumors are true. iPad OS 16, which has been having some interesting conversation around it since it launched into beta this past June. Lots of things about Stage Manager being not that great, not all it's cracked up to be, to the fact that people were lamenting the fact that it couldn't get on any models that weren't M1 iPad models. But now we're hearing in a report from Bloomberg's Mark Gurman that Apple will be delaying the official launch of iPad OS 16 until sometime in October this year. We were originally expecting it in September, along with iOS 16, watchOS 9, macOS Ventura, but now it looks like it's been delayed, and apparently the delay in the software is due at least in part to an ambitious effort to overhaul the iPad's multitasking capabilities. So this includes Stage Manager, that lets users operate several tasks at the same time, resize windows, and bounce between different clusters of apps. So yet another, potentially another L, as the kids say, for stage manager, maybe.
Yeah, this is weird. The thing about this is, so Mark Gurman, of course, very reputable, very plugged in. So I would take pretty much what he says as gospel at this stage of kind of the year in terms of Apple's product cycles, software, all that sort of thing. It's important to note, Luke, when you say about expecting iPadOS, we just sort of, it's like you said, we've kind of come to expect iPadOS at a particular time because all the software usually comes out at the same time. Apple always just says autumn. It never ties itself into a specific event or a specific product or even a specific window, apart from summer, like 3 months, isn't it? Right, you've got a big window there. The interesting thing about this for me is, I don't know, this may be just I'm reading way too much into what Mark has said here, which is the delay of the software is due to an ambitious effort to overhaul the iPad's multitasking capabilities. Now, does that mean that the current setup, Stage Manager, fast memory swap on, because remember, this is only for the M1 iPads and future Apple Silicon iPads. Does he mean that the current kind of configuration, what Apple has rolled out up to this point, that's what's causing issues and difficulties? Because as much as we've said it's a bit controversial, it's not on the older iPads, or maybe it's not the high-powered multitasking we're asking for, I haven't seen too many reports to say that like it stinks or that it isn't, it doesn't function. So does he mean the work Apple has done up to this point, or is Apple undoing and redoing that work? So is it overhauling the overhaul, if that makes sense? So has it decided Stage Manager and other things need a complete overhaul? So is this delay so Apple can try it on lower powered iPads, or is it changing Stage Manager? Because remember, Stage Manager is also on macOS Ventura. I haven't just made that up in my head, have I? As I said that, I was like, is that
you're
true?
right. You're right.
Stage Manager is also on macOS Ventura. And the continuity between those with universal control is really important. So I'd just be really curious to see what the overhaul part of this means. Is it Apple has delayed iPadOS because it's bitten off more than it can chew, or because it's had a go at Stage Manager multitasking and decided this isn't working, we need to rethink it? So does it need more time to do what it said it was going to do, or has it changed its plans?
Well, first of all, delay is a little bit of a misnomer because Apple didn't say it was going to be released in September. Apple said fall.
That is
so
correct,
yeah. we can't technically call it a delay when Apple hasn't given a date. So there's that. But I mean, I feel like, wouldn't you rather that Apple fine tune it and get it right before releasing it to the public, rather than putting it out when it's sort of half baked?
Yeah, I mean. Obviously, when it launches, we want it to be the best version it possibly can be, and we don't want it to be, confusing or not working properly. I think from what I read into this this post by Mark Gurman, I believe it's just they want additional time to make Stage Manager work a little better. I agree with you. I don't think anyone's come right out and said, oh, it's awful, but I think there have been some complaints about it being a little confusing, not super intuitive. It also, I mean, it's in beta software right now, so you'll see some bugs every now and then, but that's just kind of beta software. I don't really think
it's hard to know, isn't it? Like, do I not like this because it doesn't work yet, or does it work and I don't like what they've done with the place? That's always the quirk of using the betas in that way.
Yeah. So, but and Karen, you're right. Saying delay is a slight of a bit misnomer. It's funny that we have there's this conversation in the gaming industry all the time when you hear about games that don't have official release dates then getting delayed because of inside turmoil in the studio or whatever. And then there's always this big conversation. It's like, well, can you delay anything that hasn't been announced? And it's like, well, internal documents show that they had a projected release time, and now that's different. So it's like it's a delay but not a delay at the same time. I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm sure this isn't the first time that an OS will launch in one of the major OSs will launch probably a bit later. I think it's happened before. And it could be a blessing in disguise, because one of the reasons why we get iOS 16 and, watchOS 9 and stuff in September is because the new products come out. we will have a new iPhone that will then run iOS 16 the best that it possibly can. It will ship with iOS 16. You don't have to worry about installing it or anything like that. Same with the Apple Watch and WatchOS 9. But there is as far as we know, there is no iPad coming out in September, but there likely is in October, and that's typically
probably
when
in the fall.
Yeah, probably in the fall
really
sometime.
Makes sense. It really makes sense then to drop the iPad OS 16 in at the same time as the iPad Pro.
Yeah.
Because,
I mean, Apple,
even if they release a new iPad in September, regular iPad, it wouldn't be able to take advantage of all the cool features in iPad OS 16 anyway. So
yeah, it would need to be like if Stage Manager is the problem specifically, like Karen said, it would need to be the Air or the Pro. So who knows? Maybe I think I can't, like you said, Luke, off the top of my head, I can't remember like an iOS or an iPad being delayed, but I think I recall specific features of them being delayed. I'm sure. I want to say Universal Control didn't come with macOS last year, but again, I might be wrong about that.
No, you're right.
I am brilliant then. Yeah, so we've had specific features delayed, but I don't remember Apple ever saying. I mean, obviously Apple wouldn't say either way, but like the whole thing being delayed. But maybe that is preferable to them saying.
Anybody who's really sad about it can just go ahead and download the public beta anyway. So I don't feel too bad for anyone who's upset about this.
Fair. It is interesting though. It's interesting to hear that perhaps it's Stage Manager is also causing not just issues on the outside world, but perhaps issues in internal world. Before we continue with some more iPad rumors, Stephen, why don't you tell us about a sponsor?
Thank you, Luke. Today's iMore show is brought to you by Alto. Do you have an account with Coinbase, or are you thinking of opening one? Do you own any Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, or other cryptocurrency? Cryptocurrency may represent the future of money, and it's one of the most exciting investment opportunities to come around for some time. But what about taxes? With an Alto Crypto IRA, you can trade crypto like Bitcoin and avoid or defer the taxes. You can get into investing in crypto and do it in a tax-advantaged retirement account. Alto's Crypto IRA is the easy way to get crypto into an IRA. You can trade all you want without the tax headache and create an account in just a few minutes and invest with as little as $10. It has industry-leading security and multiple ways to fund your account. Ready to take your investments to the next level? Diversify like the pros and trade without tax headaches. Open an Alto Crypto IRA with as little as just $10. Just go to altoira.com/iMore. That's ALTOIRA.com/iMore. Start investing in cryptocurrency today. Go to altoira.com/iMore.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Alto, for sponsoring the iMore show. The better rumor, the happier rumor at least, about iPad is that the cheapest model, so the base iPad model, looks to be getting the massive overhaul that we were always wondering if it was going to get. Stephen, take us through this rumor.
Yeah, this is so quite often in the run up to products being released, especially your iPhones, iPads, we start to see CAD rumors, and nobody knows where they come from. They just start appearing on the internet, and they often come from the same outlets. So there's a lot of usual suspects, and usually they're quite accurate. So this is an iPad CAD render. So yeah, like Luke said, the 10th rumored 10th generation iPad, the cheapest iPad, which is currently the iPad 9, from My Smart Price. And these are CAD renders that appear to show that the base model iPad is going to get some, not all, some of the design language change that it has been crying out for a couple of years now. And all of the other iPads, the Pro, the Air, the Mini, have already received. So that is essentially the square edges. Possibly a USB-C port. You can't tell from the renders because in these CAD renders, the USB-C or Lightning port is kind of blanked out. But we've heard rumors previously that it will get USB-C from other sources. Otherwise, it's got a roughly. You're looking at the bottom of the iPad Air, the iPad Mini in terms of the speaker grill. Like I said, the squared edges that you would recognize on the Pro and the Air. The biggest not change though is that it does seem to be retaining Touch ID and also the kind of the forehead chin configuration. So rather than the thin strip of bezel all the way around with like a Face ID camera, you're getting a larger bezel at the top and the bottom, one of which houses Touch ID and the home button, and the top portion which houses the front-facing camera. So nearly all of the change, but not quite. But I think that makes sense because probably retaining Touch ID in the iPad is probably preferred for a lot of customers. It's also going to be cheaper than implementing Face ID and a more powerful front-facing camera. So yeah, what do you guys think?
Well, a friend of mine told me last night that she was going to buy a new iPad for her daughter, and I said, "Wait, don't buy it yet. There's a new one coming out. It's going to be better."
Yeah.
So
yeah, this is interesting. Like looking at the CAD, the render, or I guess it's not a render, right? It's an actual picture.
It's just a CAD file. Yeah.
No. So yeah, it's just a file. Yeah. Looking at the CAD, it's kind of like it's a weird mashup between what the iPad, the baseline iPad, the iPad 9th generation, and like, the new design language from, the Air, the Mini, the Pro. It's kind of like they amalgamated the two. It's interesting. Like it'll look different. I think it'll look quite different, but then also still familiar, which I think, as Stephen alluded to, I think is good, because I think the baseline iPad, the entry level iPad, has a very specific audience, I think, and it's a very useful tool. In fact, I have one that I still use every now and then, even though I have an iPad Air now, and that $399 price point is I think pretty crucial for the starting point. I hope that doesn't go up with this design. We'll have to see. And I think I don't think it will, or if it does, I don't think it'll be too much, because I think Apple realizes that it's serving a very specific market. Because for $400, you'll be hard pressed to find a better tablet, I think, than just the baseline.
And I think
iPad.
keeping the home button will keep the costs down.
Yeah, right. Because it's essentially going to be a lot of the same internals, a bit of a new body that they kind of already have, but then a lot of the same internals. So it'll be a weird amalgamation of the two designs that we see, and so it'll kind of make like a brand new design a little bit, which is interesting. Because still keeping I would have thought that maybe Touch ID would have moved into the button, the wake sleep power
like
button that we've, like the iPad Air, but apparently not. So that it'll be an interesting looking device. I think it'll look like kind of new but kind of old at the same time.
It'll look more modern. It'll be brought online with the rest of the lineup. So
I think the squared edges are enough to do that. But I probably, looking back, you would be like, oh, it desperately needs the design change, but then you're like, ditch the home button, ditch the chin, the forehead, the bezels. You're just piling cost into creating that iPad, which is basically the opposite. This is the iPhone SE of the iPad lineup, isn't it, really? So I think it makes sense, and I think it looks good, and those square edges I think will be enough to bring it in line with the current iPads, retain a bit of distinction, like Luke said, and also keep the cost down. The really interesting thing for me, which I wanted to ask you guys about, because I think I know how I feel, and not many people noticed, is that the headphone jack is gone.
Yeah.
Are headphone jacks are they not typically in CAD files though? I wonder. I don't know.
No, it has been. I don't think that's true. There's been a lot of discussion on Twitter in the wake of this CAD file coming out because it doesn't have a headphone jack. So I would expect, because these are CAD files for the iPad as opposed to like a render, so a case maker can figure something out or whatever. So I think you can glean from this that the headphone jack will not be coming to the iPad if it's if it's true.
That's going to be a problem.
Yeah, see, that's a lot of people were saying on Twitter. I was taken aback by it, but I know a lot of people, particularly with children, a lot of people mentioned the education sector.
That's what I was going to say, because schools will buy a whole set of these, and I mean, even when my kids were in school, which was a little bit of time ago, they all had like really cheap headphones that they kept at school to use with whether it was an iPad or the computers or whatever technology they were using. And like the headphones were like from the dollar store, just cheap plug-in headphones. So if they get rid of that phone jack, that means all these kids now are going to have Bluetooth headphones, which cost a lot more. Even cheap ones cost quite a bit more.
Or USB-C. I mean, obviously Apple sells, USB-C headphones like with the iPhone and stuff, but then that is an added expense because I assume they will not come with the iPad in the same way they don't come with the iPhone.
Yeah, those are definitely not as cheap as the old headphone jack
and
ones. And
also
we talk about a whole school, it adds up.
Yeah, and the other problem as well is, of course, if you're using USB-C headphones, you can't charge the iPad while you're using it. So if you're
another problem,
which I mean, I don't know how much how big the market is for people who need to use the iPad with their headphones for so long that they're going to drain the whole battery. But if you think about, kids in the classroom, children on long journeys as well, if your go-to on a big car journey or a flight is to give a child an iPad with some headphones, and you can charge it if you need to because there's a port for each of those things. Then yes, that maybe you might have to buy like a dongle for that, which of course is an added expense. It's not going to come with the iPad. So yeah, it looked like a welcome design change, and then personally it doesn't, again, because I don't have small children that I use my iPad to entertain it, and it never crossed my mind, but I saw a lot of people kind of complain about this on Twitter and thought it's probably worth bringing up and discussing, and Karen, like you said, it
believe me, nobody wants to hear those kid games. No one wants to hear those kid games.
This is
headphones are a must.
Or Peppa Pig, or do you have Peppa Pig in America?
Yeah, I'm familiar with it. Yeah,
that's excellent.
Yeah, that's an interesting catch, Stephen. I didn't even notice too. Just looking at the CAD itself, I didn't think about it. But yeah, I mean, it's been so long since I moved over to like Bluetooth everything for the most part. So and it doesn't really affect me. So I often do forget about it. It's interesting, like, it doesn't seem that long ago, although it was it doesn't seem that long ago that, the headphone jack disappeared from the iPhone. But I've completely switched over to the point where I don't even notice,
This is the last iOS, iPadOS device that kind of carries it. So
but it tends to be used by a much younger audience. I mean, a typical 5-year-old does not have an iPhone. That doesn't ever change, but quite a lot of 5-year-olds have an iPad or access to somebody's iPad in the family or at school.
Some of them must have iPad minis, and they don't have headphone jacks either. So
I don't think the iPad mini is really aimed at kids. It's too expensive. It's like twice the price of an iPad. I mean, I would never buy my kid an iPad mini because it's just too expensive.
But this is the thing, like you said, this is the iPad that if you were a school, you need 100 iPads. This is the one you would buy if 100%. You needed an iPad exclusively to occupy a child in a car journey. This is the iPad you would buy.
100%.
So that could be a bit of a deal breaker for a lot of prospective customers.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. I'm curious. I'm excited at the potential of perhaps a redesign. And I always kind of thought that maybe it would just switch over to the new design, but I kind of like the fact that it's sort of keeping some of those older elements, like you said, likely to keep costs down, which I think is once again really important for the baseline iPad. It serves a very specific audience. There's a lot of different utilities, and it really is the best tablet for like $400. Like there really isn't too much comparable out there, at least in my opinion. Some people might have different opinions if you prefer, Android or Windows or something like that. But
I think I have quite a lot of friends who prefer Android phones and will sing the praises of their Android phone and tell me how much better it is than an iPhone, et cetera, et cetera. I have never once heard anybody tell me that their Android tablet or their Fire tablet or whatever was better than an iPad. Like even the biggest iPhone haters, Android phone users have iPads, a lot of them.
Yeah. And I think for that $400 price point, there's not a lot of competition to really knock the iPad off its pedestal there. So interested to see what happens with that, and excited to see a new design. It'll be kind of new. It'll be newer than than something, because it'll kind of merge two designs, which I think is interesting. Before we move on, Karen, why don't you tell us about a sponsor of ours?
Yes. So, have you ever hit a technical snafu shopping online? Has filling out a payment feel given you a headache? Has a mobile banking app even been down when you wanted to use it? Capital One believes everyone deserves better banking. This means easier access to their money and more security. That's why Capital One is investing in machine learning. Machine learning allows Capital One to do things like fight fraud with random forests. Models quickly detect suspicious activity and make it faster to alert federal investigators. Identify how mobile app outages happen with causal models. Keeping our mobile app up and running doesn't happen by accident. Anomaly detection and incident response help determine why app outages happen, so engineers can quickly remedy them. Speed up online shopping with machine learning at the edge. Make shopping with virtual card numbers smoother and more secure. This technology is based on logistic regression models and running inference in the browser. It identifies payment fields, which helps make using virtual card numbers easier and faster. The potential of machine learning is so big. See how Capital is using machine learning to create the future of banking. Search machine learning at Capital One. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Thank you, Karen. And thank you, Capital One, for sponsoring the iMore show. So the Apple Watch saved another life this week, as the Apple Watch tends to do. But I thought that this one was particularly interesting because it helped detect a heart tumor, which is not what you usually hear about Apple Watch. You usually hear like, oh, fall detection kicked in and somebody had fallen and lost consciousness and they called 911 or emergency services.
Yep, big ones.
Yeah, or just in general, it was able to reach when they couldn't reach their phone. They were still able to have an Apple Watch that could do emergency calls for them, things like that. You hear a lot of that. And while that's amazing on its own right, this story was kind of interesting. This Kim Durkee, if hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, Apple's Apple Watch detected an irregular heart rhythm during her sleep, which kind of pointed towards the presence of atrial fibrillation, or AFib, which, if you don't know, is a heart condition that occurs when your upper chambers and lower chambers of your heart are not in sync. So your heart's either beating too slowly or too quickly. That's kind of a layman's definition of it. And it happened a couple days in a row. At first, you thought it was a glitch or a mistake, but it kept happening. And then upon further tests, they found out that she had a heart tumor next to her heart that was causing her heart to not have proper function. And it got me thinking, for my own aging relatives, it really got me thinking about just like how many stories we see of the Apple Watch, like saving someone's life or at least, if not directly responsible, at least indirectly responsible into a person getting the help they need in emergency situations. And then something like this even just reminds me that the Apple Watch just does things that can save your life just by you wearing it around. You don't even have to, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to press any buttons. You don't have to worry about like setting up any sort of settings. You just strap it on your wrist and all of a sudden you have this kind of extra layer of protection. Now, of course, it's not a doctor. It can't diagnose you. It can't do any of that stuff. But the fact that it can give you these early warning signs into like very serious conditions started making me think about my mother, who has some, health concerns of her own and has been in the past few years trying to be a little more active and things like that. And she had a Fitbit years ago and never really liked it because it was always like really separate from all of her other technology. And she does have an iPhone. She's like, I'd put her tech savviness at about like a medium, like kind of a medium level. And so I was like, you know what? Her birthday's coming up. It's her 60th this year. I'm going to get her something really nice. I'm going to get her an Apple Watch. And I was really stoked about this idea. And then this article kind of came along and sort of solidified my opinion that this is a great tool for a great gift for someone, who's aging, who you might be worried about, who you want to have that extra layer of protection, who maybe has, maybe especially like if they have a history of AFib, like an Apple Watch totally makes sense. If they're maybe not as steady on their feet, an Apple Watch totally makes sense. Or even if they just want something to track their fitness, which is what Kim Durkee in Maine wanted an Apple Watch for, and boom, a year later, it saves her life from a heart tumor. So
Yeah.
I've been so blown away that I've convinced myself that I'm buying my mom an Apple Watch. But I told this to Karen a couple of days ago, and she told me that it might not be a good idea. Why do you think that might not be a good idea, Karen?
Well, I'm sure Stephen will agree with me. When I worked at the Apple store, so Stephen worked at one too, we would frequently get customers in the store that were like, my kid bought me this Apple Watch and I don't know what to do with it. What's the point? Like, why do I, what's the point of this? Why do I need this? And they would be more flustered and frustrated about it than actually enjoying the product. So I had told Luke privately, or in our work chat rather, make sure this is something she actually wants. So, and Luke mentioned his mother had actually talked about getting one and definitely wanted one. So that's awesome. It's a really neat gift. But I just want to put it out there for anybody who's thinking about buying one for a relative. Make sure it's something that they actually want, not something that you think they should have.
Definitely a conversation I have had as well. Like literally what does this do? It's funny, Luke, because you said like what the great things about the Apple Watch is it's just a watch and you wear it and you don't have to do anything and it's working away in the background, counting your steps and stuff like that. But yeah, you'll definitely find, some people, not always, but particularly older generations of folk who had them bought by younger relatives, like, what do I do with this? Or why do I have it and stuff? But if it is something then that your mum is interested in, then I can't see why it wouldn't make a great gift. Are you going to wait for the new stuff that's coming out in September or October that we think is coming?
Yeah, that's the interesting conversation I'm having with my brother right now, because Apple Watches aren't necessarily cheap. So me and my brother are going halfsies on it.
Nice one.
And because her birthday is literally in a few weeks. So we're either going, we haven't decided.
They're going to come out in like a couple of weeks after that.
I know. So I've been thinking we're gonna wrap up a nice IOU and then tell her what we plan on doing once the Apple Watch 8
or
releases.
We could just buy her an Apple Store gift card.
That's true. There's also that, although we don't exactly know what the prices will be, but we hope they'll be the same, but they potentially could go up. So I think we'll probably opt to give her something to open, probably give her something little like some chocolates or something that she really likes, but then say like, hey, your big gift is coming. We're just kind of waiting for the new one. And especially as like, we're waiting for Tim Cook. He's on the clock here.
Yeah. And you might even like plan a date with her to take her to the store and pick it out so she can pick out the color that she wants and the band that she wants. And then you'll be there to help her set it up. And, you could make a whole...
Or she might hate it when she gets to the store and you can buy her the new iPad 10. But not quite the same bezels instead.
Yeah. It's funny though, because for my brother was making fun of me because I told my brother I wanted to do this. And at first he said he liked the idea and he was into it. But he made fun of me because for my parents' 40th or my parents' 35th wedding anniversary, which was just this past year, I got both my parents this really nice set of like matching like watches, like just watches, like analog watches. And so my brother was like, are you just getting watches your gift now? Is that your go-to gift for everyone? So
one thing I will add, just to sorry, Luke, to cut you off with it, to counterpoint Karen, I forgot this had happened, but I have my own personal story to share about this. I quite recently gave my mum my old Series 3 Apple Watch, which like the Series 3 is dead right. My mum would be on like the extremely low tech savvy, but my mum absolutely loves her Apple Watch. All she uses it for is to tell the time and track when she goes running, and she thinks it is the best thing since sliced bread. So
if she's tracking her runs, then she's using it for more than just a watch. So it's great.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just cool. It's just cool. Like I wrote an article about this and we'll put it in our notes. So check it out if you want, about why I'm buying my mom a Apple Watch for her 60th birthday. And one of the things I said is the idea that we have this device that we can put on our wrist and it just has all this, great technology in it that literally can save our lives is like something that's directly ripped from like a 90s sci-fi script. Like it's so cool to think like when I was a kid, like I would dream about technology like this, I would dream that we'd be able to wear around some sort of device that would just, prevent us from having not prevent us, but like let us know when we're having heart attacks or let us know when we, when we're in trouble, or just be able to like signal 911 as soon as we need it kind of thing. And it's cool that that technology exists. Like, I think sometimes in the sphere that we're in as like tech journalists, we kind of get a little desensitized to how cool and how interesting and how useful the tech is that we use every day, and just like all the like practical benefits that it has for people in society in a lot of ways. Not that there isn't things about tech that is kind of scary as well as it progresses forward, but I just like, it's cool to kind of sit back for a moment and be like, as if we're you know, at this point where we could just strap this thing on our wrist and be good to go, kind of thing. And
Someone's also
Annie in the
issued
comments,
Annie
in the comments said my article
clarification.
was great, but that 60 isn't really elderly. And true, I'm not saying, I'm not trying to put any labels on anyone, but I try to, you know, my mom, as we all are, as we go around the sun every year, we're all aging, and as you age, that comes with more, you know, more.
He was just future proofing the article.
Problems.
That's all.
Yeah,
it is.
future
It will be true
really.
eventually. Yeah.
Yeah. And whatever
Maybe
elderly is
yeah.
to you, I know some 80-year-olds who I swear are 20-year-olds. So it really is a mindset at the end of the day, I think. But yeah, I appreciate Karen for your, you know, Karen alluded to how she reminded me about you know, make sure that your mom actually wants this, and that is a good point. Don't just buy Apple Watches for everyone, or for anyone. Make sure that they're actually at least interested or want it, and be willing to help them out with it if you know what you're doing. And I mean, obviously, my mom has the benefit of having me as a son, so I don't think I'll have problems getting her set up and ready to go, and kind of teaching her how to use it. And
make sure they have an iPhone also.
Yes. Very useful, which my mom obviously does, and she loves her iPhone a lot. So yeah, moving on. One of the last things we want to talk about here is we've kind of gotten a better look at the macOS Ventura's continuity camera feature, because it's been shown off now with Belkin's mount that will be coming out, that you can place on the back of your laptop or your computer or whatever, hold your iPhone, and then use continuity camera. We've seen it. Obviously, we saw it in the keynote, kind of working at Apple's keynote. But now there are videos, because some influencers and Apple tech people have gotten a hold of it. Particularly, I think iJustine. If you follow iJustine, she has a really good breakdown of just kind of how it works. Just showing it off. It's like a 90-second video, just kind of shows off what it does. And I think it looks really cool, actually. I understand. I know we've talked about this before, but that top-down view is so interesting. It's such a cool way of using the ultra wide camera.
For sure. And how smart is Belkin to get in on that partnership with Apple to get their little clip out there first? I mean, it's such a simple thing. Any company could make one, and they all will, but Belkin is now the one that everybody knows. So
I have a theory that this Belkin clip is why Johnny Ive kind of finally severed all of his ties with Apple.
Yeah, no, it's not really cute. It's just
doesn't look great. And it's for me, it's just like an admission on Apple's part. It was like, we're done with the Mac webcam. Just use your phone, which kind of makes sense. He probably should have done it sooner. But nothing says we don't need to upgrade the Mac camera anymore, like continuity camera. So yeah, but yeah, very cool. And I think the desk view feature is definitely like the standout here. So it's cool, and I think it's cool. You know, we've had for as long as I can remember now, handoff of lots of different, you know, like you remember when we first got like, so you could hand off mail, so you were writing an email on your phone and pick it up on your MacBook and stuff like that. There's always been that really cool element of kind of continuity across different Apple devices. So using hardware now as an extension of that, I think is really cool. So I wonder if there will be, you know, in future other ways that we can do that. For instance, like, as you know, like even like shooting like video and stuff like that, perhaps from an iPhone, like directly to a MacBook, in maybe the way you would use a DSLR camera or something like that. But yeah, I have mixed feelings on the Belkin and continuity camera. I think it makes sense. I think it makes most sense for everyone who already has a Mac, but I would still like to see better cameras on the Mac in future.
Yeah, and I agree. I think I hope that they'll continue to sort of improve the camera as it necessary. I think like now that they finally got all the computers kind of on this 1080p better sensor than the 720p that they were running for years and years and years, that was super outdated. I think this is like, it's pretty good, especially if you're just like running and gunning. If you just need something to kind of, you know, get up, you're doing a quick meeting somewhere. I think these cameras are great. I think obviously the ability to just use your iPhone, which is going to be much better, it is also great, but it's not necessary. But I agree. Like, as we go into the future, we know like eventually 4K webcams will become the norm eventually, right? Like, it's already maybe even there, arguably, depending on who you're talking to. But it would be a little disappointing to see Apple literally just throw their hands up in the air and be like, just use your iPhone. It's fine. Don't worry about it. We'll just keep the same sensor in there for years, which is kind of what they did with the 720p sensor. So if you look at their history, except it's not necessarily, they don't have the greatest track record on including webcams. But to their credit, I will say, you know, as the pandemic hit and webcams kind of became more important in a lot of people's lives, you know, due to teleconferencing more, or just online meetings, or even just, you know, staying connected with relatives, they did kind of step up their game a little bit and sort of, you know, make it not only a better camera, but they added features like center stage, which I think is really useful for people, especially if, you know, you happen to be moving around a lot while you're talking to somebody. Like I talk to some friends a lot when I'm cooking dinner, and if I can kind of just stay in frame and not have to worry about if I have to go grab the salt or whatever. And it's good. So I, you know, give them credit where credit is due, but cautiously optimistic about how continuity camera will fit into the ecosystem as a whole going forward. So
yeah, your friends let you use center stage? Because when I used it with my kids, they told me it was making them sick and to turn it off.
Yeah, I mean, I maybe I just don't move around all that much when I try to make sure I'm not, you know, walking everywhere all the time. But like, I've used it on occasion, and you know, we have a freelancer in in our iMore meetings that likes to use it too, and I've noticed, and it does. I don't feel like it bothers me. Every time I see it, I notice it. Like, it'll distract me for maybe a quick second, but I'm always like, oh, okay, cool. It's working as intended. He's
I think the problem is I use it with my iPad in my lap, and so like I'm moving the iPad around, and then that's making me move. You know what I mean? So it's just making my kids motion sick. So I had to stop doing that.
Yeah. Quickly before we wrap up, really quickly, one thing we wanted to talk about, and I kind of forgot until right now, was kind of purchasing the next iPhone. Steven?
Yeah, we're going to take it's obviously we're quite close now to the swath of fall of events and stuff, and all the different products come out. So we take a little bit of time each week to focus on one. So a cool idea, I thought, and pertinent, obviously, with what we talked about today, the base price of the iPhone, inflation, all of that. I want to know, what is the one thing, and I'll start to give you guys time to think about this. What's the one feature, change, upgrade, old feature coming back, wherever it may be, what's the one thing you need in this year's iPhone to kind of guarantee that you're going to upgrade? Now, for me, it's the rumored 48 megapixel camera, because I feel like we've been stuck. Sorry, I think I've just stolen both of your ideas as well, which is the game's the game, isn't it? We've had this 12 megapixel camera for so long, and I know Apple makes it slightly better every single year, but there's never been like a, hey, new camera. It's like, oh, it's ever so slightly better than the last one. And the reason I buy the iPhone every year largely is the camera is a huge deal on that. The reason I buy the Pro iPhone as opposed to the regular one, again, the camera is a huge kind of part of that. So the 48 megapixel camera for me, I think, is going to be like a deal maker or breaker if it isn't there. That's the one thing that like I would definitely have to see. I might still get an iPhone 14, but it might be like a regular one as opposed to a Pro. But for me, that 48 megapixel camera kind of has to come out this year. Otherwise, I'm going to be thoroughly disappointed and possibly spending my money elsewhere. Not on Android, but like on shoes or something. Or yeah.
Yeah, I obviously I was going to say exactly word for word what Steven just said, but I'm going to add to that. I've noticed something with the iPhone 13 Pro's phone, and I don't know if it's the HDR or what it is, but the thing where the light hits gets very blown out. And I know it's a computer thing, and I hate it. And I've seen a lot of chatter about it online, so I know it's not just me. I've been very disappointed with the iPhone 13 Pro's camera, and I can get around that by using live photo and then editing and going and picking another key photo, because for whatever reason, Apple only blows out the key photo that Apple chooses. So I can work around that, but that's ridiculous to have to do that on $1,000 phone. So I'm hoping that Apple stops doing that with the next camera. So that's my big hope. The rumor that is most exciting to me, second most exciting to me after the 48 megapixel camera, is the Purple Pro phone. I'll just leave it there.
Nice one.
Yeah, I think I kind of want to play devil advocate and say that there is nothing that'll probably make me upgrade my personal iPhone, because obviously I kind of have a work iPhone that I keep up to date, and that, but like sort of my personal iPhone is an iPhone 11 currently, which I just bought like last year, and I'm still loving it, to be honest. And I don't necessarily feel that I need the latest and greatest all the time in my personal life. A lot of that, though, is because I do have access to some of the better tech because of my job. So I don't know how I would feel if it was just me on my own. But I will say, if there's something about the iPhone 11 that, and having, as someone who's used an iPhone 13 Pro as well, and somebody who uses the 11 every day, I think just like how much better that battery is and how much farther that battery goes is really, really appealing to me. Like, it's interesting. I can use both in a day and use them practically the same way. And, there's a noticeable difference between, when I have to finally plug in my iPhone 11 and when I have to plug in my iPhone 13 Pro. So if they could even, it's hard because, there's always the give and take of putting a bigger battery, and then that means your design has to get a little thicker or a little bigger or whatever. There's always that give and take, but like I'm kind of for the bigger batteries. The more battery percentage we have is always great. A little less charging probably goes a good way for battery health as well. Over time, obviously you won't notice a lot in the short term, but long term you might notice the benefits there. So I think like if any improvements they do on battery life is probably like the biggest thing that I look for in a daily driver, and something I'm going to use every day, and have in my pocket with me everywhere I go. So that'd be the one thing. Although realistically, I don't think I'll be upgrading my personal phone this year around. I don't think that
better battery is always welcome.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
And that's our show. That's our show. Thanks for listening. If you're listening live, commenting with us, we appreciate you. Anyone listening to their podcatcher of choice, thank you so much for downloading and listening to us every week. We really appreciate it. You can always hit us up on Twitter at iMore if you want to ask us any questions, ask us what we think, tell us any interesting tidbits about how you use your tech. We'd love to hear those. You can also hit us up on Instagram at iMoreGram. Just a quick reminder, I said this at the beginning of the show, but the next 2 weeks, we will be doing our live show on the Thursday instead of the Friday. So that would be Thursday, August the 11th. We'll be doing that at 11 a.m. Eastern, and Thursday, August 18th. We'll also be doing that 11 a.m. Eastern. That's only for the live show. It won't affect our audio only version. It'll still be uploaded and everything as normal. So don't worry about it if you don't listen to us live. But if you do listen to us live, try and catch us on Thursday the next 2 weeks if you can. We'd really like it if you could join us. And until next time, we will say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.